Sidney Lumet is here. He has more than 50 films to his credit, including 12 Angry Men, Dog Day Afternoon, and Network. In 2005, he won an Academy Award for Lifetime Achievement for, quote, his brilliant services to screenwriters, performers, and the art of the motion picture. His new film is Find Me Guilty, and here is the trailer for the film.
Never lost.
Pleased to welcome Sidney Lumet back to this table. Welcome back.
Nice to see you again, Charlie.
Great to see you. This movie is getting good reviews.
Getting good reviews.
Please, as you, and as this glowing Valentine to you in the Washington Post.
Right. It was really. I didn't know who they were talking about.
He said, "Is this me?" Well, they had a picture. So yeah, great. Now here is the great thing. How old are you?
81.
Mike Wallace is 80 something, right?
88, I think.
Yeah. Here's this fabulous photograph of you with a sweater on, on the style section of the Washington Post. Yesterday, as we tape this, in the New York Times, there is Mike, barefooted, sitting on the steps, looking great. We're still in the 80s, still going strong. There's hope for everybody.
We're holding on by that.
This movie, based on actual events, how did it, tell me the real story.
Well, I get interested, Charlie, as soon as authority makes a mistake. And
yes, exactly.
and the longest trial in American criminal history, 20 defendants, 76 charges, and the jury threw it out in 14 hours. Now, what's fascinating about it is it's the total dominance by one personality of all of the evidence. It wasn't that the government was stupid about it. Personality was so enormous. His humor, his relaxation. Now, listen, he had nothing to use. He was serving 30 years in jail, right? Yeah. and it dominated totally.
Now, did the script come to you, or did what?
The script arrived. It was very touching. 2 actors sent me the script. I don't know how they got involved, but they are still listed as producers or associate producers. And we have 11, I think, on the show. Yeah. And they brought it to me for one reason. They both wanted parts in it. I read it. I liked it. It needed work. We did the work. Finally got a deal. The picture's going. One of them I had no part for. The other one I did have a part for, but I cut it out before the film was finished. Poor guy.
But are they happy about the movie?
But they're happy about the movie, yeah. But can you imagine that that's the opening motive, and they wind up without a part?
But they're okay now. I mean, even though they're...
I don't know. I'm not sure that they're okay.
I'd be okay if it was my idea and I brought it.
I think that a little tear on the pillow every night.
But you have to make the movie you have to make. Is that the idea?
Absolutely. Sure.
Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
How did you find him? Or did he find you?
No, I didn't find him. He'd been interested in the subject matter a long time ago, I'd heard. But he's a remarkable man, Charlie. We're all snobs. We see action hero, he can't act, right? It's all muscles. Beautiful blonde actresses, they can't act. Right. And we know different. The history of movies is different. Sean Connery was an action hero, one of our best actors. Clint Eastwood was an action hero, one of our best. Marilyn, we don't even have to talk about. And it goes back a long time. I go back to the days of Gary Cooper going yup and nope. Yeah. And there he was, just superb actor. So in a way, it's our snobism that relegates him to a certain spot. I had been interested in Vin for another picture that didn't come through. I couldn't get the financing on it. And I looked at a movie that he had made himself with his credit card called Multifacial. It's a 20-minute short. And he wrote it, he directed it, he stars in it. And he wanted to jumpstart his career. And it's the story of an actor making the rounds one day. So he gets a chance to play 5 different parts before this casting agent, before trying to get that agent. He was brilliant. He took it to Cannes during the festival, rented a theater for 2 days, showed it one afternoon, then the next afternoon, and he started to work from it. I saw that, and I just needed no convincing. He's a superb actor. And what's doubly surprising about him, you expect with all those muscles, became a star driving race cars. He's got a total technique. He's got a completely creative background. His family was one of the first families into West Beth on the original purpose of it, which was to provide a painter with...
Westbeth is an apartment building downtown in the West Village where
for painters and
painters
and if your income went over $10,000 a year in those days, you were thrown out.
Yeah.
His father's a painter. His mother, I think, was the recording secretary for the Merce Cunningham Dance Company. He's a total surprise in every way.
All right, take a look at this. And this is Vin Diesel as Jackie DiNorscio, right?
DiNorscio.
Jackie D. Here it is. Vin Diesel met the real Jackie D.
He did. He spent a lot of time with him.
What did he get out of that?
He fell in love with him. He just felt he was one of the most important people he'd ever met. He was charmed by him. He did something which, when I found out about it, I was very shocked. He invited him down to the set, which is such a no-no when you're dealing with the real person. Right. I remember when we were doing Serpico, Frank asked if he could come and visit the set, and Pacino had spent about 3 weeks with him before we started shooting. And I had to say no. And, he felt so betrayed, so hurt, because you can imagine trying to perform, and there he is, the real person looking on and watching it. But Vin brought him down to the set. Only one day. He was very sick at the time. By the way, it's interesting, Charlie. All of that dialogue, I would say 80 to 85% of the dialogue in the picture, in the courtroom, is actual testimony.
Taken from the transcript?
Yep.
So he was that good?
He was startling. And, when the first thing I thought about after I thought, maybe I ought to do this, is wait a minute. What if it's forced? What if nobody believes it? And then, of course, I saw that the problem was mine because we had just gone through the exact same thing. I followed the O.J. Simpson case very closely. And it wasn't O.J. that dominated it. He never opened his mouth. But Johnny Cochran sure dominated it. And when Johnny got up there with that charm and that humor and that relaxation, if the glove don't fit, you got to acquit. He could have run for president on that. I mean, it was so original. And there is Cochran's personality totally dominating what seemed to me a perfect case. If I'd been on that jury, I would have voted guilty.
The other thing that's fascinating to me is the notion of the trial. Mm-hmm. The trials have been a staple. I mean, you made The Verdict.
Right.
One of my favorite movies. Because of Paul Newman was so magnificent because he was playing not a glamorous character.
Right.
Played against type almost. Mm-hmm. Why is it the trials are so compelling?
It's built in. Your conflict is built in. You've got one side here and one side there. You start with that. But then there's the consequence is so important.
Like
you make it believable. There's a something big is at stake.
For the same reason hospitals do so well. Doctor stories do so well.
And it goes on and on and on. When I was growing up, Elmer Rice wrote plays about the justice system. It's just continual.
When you look at this movie, is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it what?
I'm so glad it's funny because it is funny. And it's funny for a serious reason.
He was a funny man.
Yeah, he was a funny man. And the humor did so much in getting him off and the rest of them off. That jury laughed. It's something I couldn't show because I just didn't have the time for it. But when he went back to prison, after the trial was over, and they were all called not guilty, the warden met him at the gate and escorted him back to his cell.
Welcome back home. All right, here's a clip from that. This is where Bella, his wife, visits him in prison. Here it is.
Time is fleeting, Bella. Who knows, maybe I'm next in line.
Not you. God left you a long time ago, and the devil is scared of you.
He should be.
Let me just ask one small point about that. One camera, one shot. How many takes it took, I don't know. But no movement, no close-up. Tell me about just the shooting of it through Sidney Lumet's eyes.
Well, Charlie, I've always been this way. If the style of it shows, then it's bad style.
Yeah.
I want to do it as simply as possible. I don't want you to see what I'm doing. It's nobody's business but mine. And it's one of the things that I found so terrific. I don't know if you felt as I did. I felt this was one of the best years in American movies in I don't know how long.
Because of the movies we saw?
Yeah, the quality of
History
work.
of Violence and Brokeback Mountain and
Capote
and Good Night and Good Luck
and Munich and
Munich.
And one of the things that they had in common, which I found, I hope I had something to do with it, they were all so simply done. I don't know whether a whole bunch of very good directors suddenly said, I don't want anything to do with a computer anymore. I'm not interested in those kinds of images. It was as if it was a revolt against the technological takeover of movies. Now, mind you, nothing would be worse than my kind of movie all the time.
Yeah.
What I think is so good about American movies now is it's every kind. We're back to animated movies. We're back to musicals, dramas, comedies, every kind, and that's very healthy. But the dramas themselves, it seemed to me, were getting very fancy.
I won't ask you which one you love the best and have you tell me about all your children, but I will. Tell me what all these films brought you the most satisfaction.
It's hard, Charlie, and I'm not ducking the question, I promise you. It's hard because I felt something from the beginning of my work, from the beginning time I started to direct, that I still do. I don't know what the result is going to be. I don't know whether an audience is going to like it. I don't know.
Even after it's made, even after it's ready for the theater?
I don't know. I mean, my idea of a commercial hit, and it's one of the reasons I did the movie, because I needed a commercial hit at the time, was to bring Melanie Griffith into the Hasidic community in New York.
Yeah.
That's my idea. That was going to be a big hit movie. So, this is not about Melanie, who's a magnificent actress. It was a dopey idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know what...
And so the point there, don't trust your instinct for that.
I have none. I know that. So
why did you do it? Because it was a story you wanted to tell.
Yeah, and it's an area that had never been touched before. Also, I'm stubborn and silly, and you can talk yourself into anything. But the thing is this, that I don't know what the result is going to be. I don't even know what the result is going to be creatively. Now, look, I'm not being falsely modest here. There's a reason some of us wind up with good pictures and others never will.
Talent?
We know how to lay the groundwork for it.
Yes.
But whether or not it happens, and I think you'll get this answer from everybody who's had a decent career, whether or not that good special thing is going to happen is accidental. We don't know in advance.
You mean as a kind of something in...
It's a mystical
something
thing.
You can't manufacture, something you can't tell somebody, something you can't buy.
Precisely.
You can't go buy a cinematographer and have a good movie. You can't go buy a script and have, without other things, a good movie.
Exactly. Somewhere around the second week of shooting, you're looking at the rushes and you say, uh-oh, that's kind of good. Yeah. Something special is happening here. The best thing I can do now is get out of the way.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is that the one thing that mattered to me from the beginning was the process. And that's what I care about, how the work is done, how we get together, how everybody gets functioning on their best. And because of that, almost every movie has been a totally happy experience.
You have loved this career.
I have no complaints.
If you take the top 5 directors you know,
mm-hmm.
the best,
mm-hmm.
dead or alive,
mm-hmm.
that you've know their work, what do you think they would have? What would be one quality they would share? Or two?
Number one, they would have had to have enormous inner energy. I don't know that anybody knows how tiring it is to do a movie. Now, This is no complaint. Yeah. It's the greatest tiredness in the world.
Yeah. But you got to be involved in everything.
Everything. There are no small decisions. When I'm on set, there are 124 people, any one of whom can ruin my movie. I mean ruin. There are no small decisions. There's small salaries, that's about it. Literally, everybody is critical. So that inner energy of keeping everybody going. And an outer energy in terms of fighting. I remember once, Charlie, I was at dinner, and I literally burst into tears because I had just come from a meeting about a terrific picture that was not successful called The Hill with Sean Connery.
Right, I remember it.
And the advertising department had just brought in an ad where it was one of those pictures of Sean, you know, with the mouth open, yelling.
Yeah.
And out of his head were coming bubbles, like on a cartoon. And in the biggest bubble was a belly dancer. This thing took place in the desert.
Right.
And I couldn't believe what I was looking at. That it was Sean's, I think maybe his first or at the most second picture outside of the Bond character. And I blew my lid. And that night at dinner, I burst into tears. And the person I was having dinner said,
You burst into tears at dinner about
at
this?
dinner. And she said, what happened? And I said, I am so tired of fighting. You fight about getting the picture done. You fight about the casting. You fight about, and now it's finished and it's first rate and we like it. And in comes this piece of idiocy that they're going to try to sell it with. So,
studio executive.
Yeah. So the energy of fighting for what you believe in, and it never stops. That is no different in the 50 years I've been making movies.
Now, authors will say, I do characters best or I do plot best. Now, is there an equivalent to that in directing?
I think so, yeah. I'd never thought of it before, but I think there are terrific directors who are at their best in action movies.
Right.
And clearly there are directors like Bergman who are so much
internal
in the inner life of the people.
And you?
I think probably the inner life.
Sometimes people, because you're New Yorkers, talk about you and Woody. What do you make of that comparison?
We're very different. It's just coincidence of locale.
Locale.
And, you know, we both work here, but done most of our movies
Both love
here.
the city, want to film in the city.
Absolutely. But our inner temperaments and our pictures are so different.
He comes out of comedy and you came out of...
And he's also after a very gentle exploration. You know, he gets much more involved with love stories and his own place in love stories and his own place with women and so on. It's a big part of the movies he makes.
Should we expect a director to go from one decade to another and get better and better and better? Or as someone once said to me, look, I think Rod Steiger said this to me once, you know, if you get a pawnbroker one time in your life, you're a lucky person.
Oh, well...
If you get a great script as a director and great actors once in your life.
True. But, you know, who was it who said there are no second acts in American creative life?
Well,
was it
but
whoever that...
Yeah.
I think he's wrong.
There are second acts and third acts.
And absolutely. I mean...
if you don't give up and if you keep believing in yourself and you keep looking for an opportunity.
Not many... again, it takes that energy to keep going.
You have never questioned...
Jerome Robbins was better at the end of life than he was at the beginning, the choreography.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about a slouch here.
Right,
I mean, he began up there.
But was better at the end.
Yeah.
How about Clint Eastwood?
Look at it. Look at it. It happens quite continually. I mean, it's superb in the subject matters he keeps getting interested.
But how about Sidney Lumet? I mean, have you done anything in the last 15 years that you are as proud of as you are? 12 Angry Men, The Verdict.
Yep, but I'm not going to tell you.
Which one it is? Which one it is?
There are a couple of them that I like enormously. And
why won't you tell me?
Huh?
Why won't you tell me?
Okay, I'll tell you, Charlie. I did a picture called Daniel that Dr. O wrote. I think it's a wonderful picture. And I did a picture called Q&A.
I remember that.
Yeah. And you know, both were failures, and I think they're first-rate work.
As good as anything you've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the storytelling, in terms of
in every way.
What you got out of the actors, in terms of
stylistically, a movie, just as a movie.
What is it that we don't understand about directing? What most of us who watch a movie, is there anything we don't get?
There's everything you don't get, especially if it's well done.
You don't see it.
The better it's done. I mean, you know, because he's such a commercial success, people tend to denigrate Spielberg. I think he's maybe the best American director for me.
Why?
He's doing something extraordinary. He is, first of all, doing first-rate material some of the time. Mm-hmm. He's doing, in a funny way, what George Clooney is doing. It's interesting. They pay their commercial dues. George has got his franchise going, right? Ocean's 11, 12, you know we're going to get to Ocean's 20. Right. And then he uses that monetary credit to do 3 movies, 4 movies that he wants to do. Stephen's doing the same thing. And his budgets out of whatever his organization is are now so enormous that he needs, I'm sure he'll do another Indiana Jones movie. Why not?
Oh, Harrison Ford was just here, said they're going to do it.
Oh, yeah? And why not? They're completely entertaining, they're fun, but he doesn't let it divert him from the pictures that he really wants to do.
He is amazing, but Eastwood does the same thing. Eastwood
and Clooney
sort
is
of
doing it.
pays his dues by doing a
Absolutely
big Unforgiven, then he gets to go do.
And I think that's a terrific
Parker.
way. I think that's a terrific way to work because that age-old thing is boring to even talk about it. It is a business and an art. There's no doubt about it.
And that's why you can't determine. You can't. There's no formula to make it work.
No.
What do you worry about with respect to the movie business? I mean,
the business itself?
No, making movies. In other words, are you going to be overwhelmed by factors that will make Sidney Lumet a dinosaur?
I'm 81.
You worry about nothing.
I'm past the dinosaur time, even.
There was a great scene in one of Milagro Beanfield War where Robert Redford has his character get up and say, and look in the mirror and splash some water in his face and say, I made it to another day, thank God.
Absolutely.
And then go forth in the day and enjoy it from that moment on.
Absolutely. And this is against a background, Charlie, that might be interesting to you. But right after I had done 12 Angry Men, which, 3 nominations, the works.
Right.
A debut you can dream about. And I just sent a script that I didn't really want to do, but it was literally World War III. It was the biggest production you've ever seen. Mm. And I'd never met a studio head before. And he wanted to meet me, so I wanted to meet a studio
Who was it?
head. And I go in, and we're sitting, and we're talking, and I said to him, look, why did you send me this script? I'm delighted and flattered, but this is World War III, and all you've ever seen of my work is 12 guys in one room. And he said, well, I'll tell you what we're looking for, Sidney. We're looking for a young Louis Milestone. Now, we're talking about number one of the great directors, right? All Quiet on the Western Front.
Right.
Number 2, I knew at that time that Louis Milestone was 61, was living in Los Angeles, and out of not being able to get a job, had developed shingles so that he used to have to wear white gloves. And thank God I had the guts to say it. I looked at this guy and I said, what's the matter with the old Louis Milestone?
Or why don't you get, you sometimes have people say just that. We want to find somebody like. So why don't you go get like?
Right.
Go get the real.
So I became aware very early that age is something that worries them.
Would you agree with this? The best directors love actors.
As far as I know, it's true, despite the stories about the Hitchcock phrase.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Hitchcock may have been.
But
had his own
Bergman
problems.
did, Fellini did, Kurosawa did, Marty does.
And they almost have a certain awe about them.
As well they should, because
of the talent. And therefore, because they appreciate the talent, they can get it out and reflect it best.
And they appreciate the risk. Yeah. I mean, if all good work is self-revelatory, then it's, no matter what the disguise is, your sexuality up there, your anger up there, your frustration up there, whatever the role is demanding. I mean, Olivier, right, this prince of technique, the greatest technician, as well as, to me, one of the greatest actors of my lifetime. He, in 80% of his roles on stage, wore a false nose.
Yeah.
Something to hide behind, to release all those parts.
Now, would he acknowledge that?
I would bet you he would say, never think of those things.
Did you know him?
I knew him slightly. I did not know him well.
Yeah, there's a great story about, and he had that magnificent performance, and somebody came backstage, and I've heard various versions of it, but basically it was remarkable. I don't know, it was Richard III or what it was, whatever it was. And somebody came backstage and said, Larry, that was great. That was amazing. I've never seen a performance like that. And his hands in his face, and he said, I know, but I don't know how. He knew it was good, but he didn't know how he got it.
It's possible.
He didn't know how it happened.
It's possible. He relied on an awful lot of things, other than supposedly acting.
Yeah.
He physically, he was incredible. I've forgotten the play, but the set was on an angle, coming up 16 feet off the ground, and at the end of it, he hurled himself off the edge, and the two soldiers caught his ankles. Jeez. And he was there swinging below this thing. When he did Oedipus in New York, and then did the comedy afterwards, and he rode down on the Metropolitan Opera curtain. Physically, the thing is the risks he took, and to me, those were all ways of keeping from knowing. In other words, Charlie, that if he could concentrate on those physical things, say, oh, that's what the performance is about. My nose, that's what the performance is about. Then he was capable of hiding from himself the tears and the genuine cost that acting was for him.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Altman once said to me, he can just sense. I mean, he has such an appreciation about it as how just difficult to do it well it is. And then you look at someone, and then you think of someone like Tracy, Spencer Tracy, who made it look so easy and seemed to be acting not much.
If they're good.
But if you talk to her, Kate Hepburn, she would say, he took it so.
But there you are again. If it's good, you're not going to know how. You're not going to know how.
So what do you make of Brando? And what he did and didn't do?
Maybe the best actor of my time.
Because?
The nature of the talent, the profundity of the talent. I remember when we worked together once, there was a line in the script in which he said, there are two things, the line was, there are two things that are important to me. And I said, Marlon, it's, I need, don't ask me why, but I want that word too is so important. So could you, there are two things that are important to me. Those two things. He said, sure, no problem. And we got to the take, and he said, there are two things that are important. He couldn't do it the way anybody else did it, which was that. He did this. He had those two fingers. That unique, singular originality, which I've never seen with any other actor. I can't call him a great actor because he never put himself up against the great roles, which is really
You know why not?
Oh, I hate to give you pat psychological answers. Let's just put it this way. From what I knew of him, I did not know him intimately. I knew him. There was an awful lot of what I think is self-hatred there and self-contempt. So there was, I think, a conscious decision on his part to not show you that, because the talent was so enormous to try to get out no matter what he did.
When you set out to make a movie, does most of the time it end up what you intended it to be or not? Is there always something that will come along and surprise you and make it different that you could never, ever predict?
On the really good ones, it all takes off.
Really?
into an unpredictable area, in the sense that it becomes, you know, obviously I work closely with the author in advance, and there's his intention, I talk about my intentions, and we talk about what we want the movie to be. On the really good ones, it becomes a third thing that neither of us ever knew about, something that we never even knew about in the script. By the way, it also happens on the very bad ones.
Yeah.
In general, on the good, solid craft movies, it pretty well comes out what you intended.
Do you write?
I've begun to write more and more. I wrote a good bit of this movie, and in the last 4 or 5
Find me
movies,
guilty, sort of, you had something to do with the script.
Right.
You've just said you found a lot of the script in the dialogue itself.
Right, the courtroom stuff, but everything outside the courtroom
yeah.
I wrote. So blame me for those.
And the thing about that Jackie D says about two most important words in the English language are
Things changed.
Things Changed came from Mamet.
That came from me stealing
From
Mamet.
Mamet, yeah.
In fact, I think Mamet had a picture called Things Changed.
Fonda, Henry Fonda, the star of 12 Angry Men.
And 4 other pictures I did.
And 4 other pictures.
Yeah.
Now, is that a case of a director and a star just speaking a language all to their own and not having to speak a language and knowing?
Well, what's so strange, Charlie, is, Fonda was maybe the most private man I've ever known. Talk about, I know it sounds ridiculous when a director says an actor is shy. Hank was shy. Yeah. And he was also very, very on edge a lot of the time.
And he had a tragedy in his life.
A number.
Yeah.
And when we came down to the set of 12 Angry Men the first day, the day before shooting, he looked at it and ran for the elevator. And I said, Hank, what's the matter? Because my first picture, and I said, have I done something wrong? Is there something wrong? He said, the backing outside that window. He said, it looks like junk. He said, look, I can see that it's painted. He said, I just came off Hitch's picture, and you could walk into the backings outside those windows. They were so real. And I thought, the day before we're shooting. Yeah. And I said, well, Hank, it is a compromise because we have, as you know, we had no money to do this picture. And the backing, usually, Charlie, what happens is that you have one backing for day and one backing for night. Right. And so we compromised with a dusk backing. And Boris, bless him, Boris Kaufman, the cameraman, said, I came to Boris and he said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. It'll look fine. And I had seen... But it rattled him. It rattled me. I had seen, and I could see, because the first shot in 12 Angry Men in the jury room started from behind the fan, and you meet all 12 guys in one shot. It goes up for 8 minutes. There were like 15 different positions for the camera to take during the shot. And I could see Hank, as I was setting it up, getting more and more nervous. And I could see him checking with Boris from time to time, like, is this possible? And Boris was totally supportive. So he had that kind of tension about him all the time. But on the other side, so the next day he came to Rush's. Now this is how shy he was. Henry Fonda would not see a movie that he had made for maybe 2 years after, till maybe 2 years after he'd made it.
Because?
He could not stand looking at himself. Now here he is, the producer of 12 Angry Men, which means he has to come to the Rush's. So he sits down on the first day of Rush's in the chair right behind me, but slumped down like that. And for a couple of shots go by, and then comes the first close-up of him, and it lasts about 40 seconds, and then he reaches forward and squeezes my shoulders. It's brilliant, and gets up and dashes out of there, never came to Rush's again for the rest of the movie. So that combination of tension and anger in him, and that total generosity and trust.
That's a film that's had a life beyond simply a movie that everybody continues to want to watch. It's used in all kinds of psychological classes, used in all kinds of instructional things about the power of reasoning, how one man turns an entire jury around. I mean, I remember once in some class it was shown as an instructive. Did he bring it to you?
Reggie Rose brought it to me. Reginald Rose wrote it, and when I was doing live television, Reggie worked for us on the live television show a lot. It had been a television show, and when they decided to do it as a movie, Reggie brought it to me.
It had been on television?
Yeah.
Oh. Dog Day Afternoon. It's like memory trail here.
Go.
And Pacino.
Right.
And who was it that died? Who was the actor?
John Cazale.
John Cazale, right. And that's your first time you'd worked with Pacino?
Right. No, we had done Serpico by then.
Oh, that's right. That was after Serpico.
After Serpico. There'd been this extraordinary run that Al had of Godfather 1, Serpico, Godfather 2, and then Dog Day.
The run continues.
I love him. He is, that word great keeps being kicked around.
He is that.
But he is a great actor.
Because?
It is almost impossible for him to do anything false. doesn't know how to. The lines will go. He won't be able to get out of the chair. There's a line of truth in him that's inviolate. And where you really see it to its magnificence is in The Godfather, in both of those movies. I mean, when you talk about courage, major star taking a role in which the whole intention is, how do I isolate myself? How do I kill off the feeling in everybody around me so that I wind up alone? That's what happens to that character.
Yeah.
And no hesitation, no sentimentality. That moment in Godfather 1, when he sprang across the room and slapped Diane Keaton, I saw it in the theater. The entire audience screamed, including me. The insane courage of that, not to mention the insane courage of playing a man who wanted to marry a transsexual in Dog Day. All of this coming with no hesitation, no sentimentality, no poor me. He doesn't play that. As you know, he's a tremendous Strasberg devotee.
Yes, and you don't like Strasberg.
And I don't like Strasberg.
And you don't like the method either.
No, I do like the method.
Oh, you do?
I think Strasberg...
Corrupted?
He got involved on what I would call the wrong level. I think it was all about showing off as far as Lee was concerned. I think he was more concerned with what he was doing in class than what the class itself was about.
You once wrote a book called Making Movies.
Mm-hmm.
1995, as I remember.
Still selling, Charlie.
Now, what's it about?
It is...
About what we've been talking about or something else?
No, it's exactly what we've been talking about. What I did was, it's ridiculous because, we went through 8 editions hardcover and we're still in print and paperback.
So it's just about making movies?
It's literally, it starts with first day of rehearsal until the story about bursting into tears because I can't control the advertising.
Yeah.
It's every single day, what happens on the set. And there's no nonsense about it. It's all about work. There are demonstrations of what a lens does. I mean, drawings, literally, that I made myself of what a lens does. There's a discussion of every aspect of movies in the exact sequence in which it happens. It was what I do. I tell you what I have for breakfast, how I do the Times crossword puzzle.
Are you pretty good?
In ink.
Is that right?
Yeah.
In ink?
In ink.
So this
except Thursday. Thursday's been getting tougher.
It gets tougher and tougher and tougher.
Yeah.
Is Thursday the toughest, or is it?
To me, it is. Friday, I get usually like that, but Thursday, I have a tough time.
And Monday's the easiest. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just do that in 5 minutes.
I almost don't do it anymore.
Is that right? There is this also. When you look at this life, I mean, here, what's great about you just made a movie you're very proud of. You had a good performance. You like the movie. We'll see how it does on the box office. Mm-hmm. But at 80, it is that you found this thing, or this thing found you, that for the most part has given you an opportunity to create.
Yeah. And, whenever it gets tough, whenever despair hits, whenever those tears come, any of that, it takes me about 22 seconds to say, cut the nonsense. You're the luckiest man in the world.
Thank you, Sidney.
Thank you, Charlie.